So, what if I told you that the key to landing your dream job at a top tech company isn't about memorizing more algorithms? What if it's about a specific way of thinking? Well, today we're going behind the curtain to uncover the one thing that interviewers are really looking for. And yeah, it's probably not what you're practicing.
Does this sound familiar? You've got the skills, you've definitely put in the work, but that offer from a big tech company it seems to stay just out of reach. And believe me, that can be incredibly frustrating. You know you're qualified, right? You've built things, you've worked on real projects. So what's the deal? What is that secret ingredient that separates the candidates who get the job from the ones who just don't?
Well, according to someone who's actually on the inside, someone who's conducted countless interviews at Amazon Web Services, the answer is way simpler than you'd think. Talha, a senior AI specialist, he says it all boils down to one thing: understanding the business impact of your work. That single shift in perspective, that's the key. So let's break down what that actually looks like in practice.
Okay, first up, we have to completely reframe how we talk about our accomplishments. I'm calling this the business mindset. And it's all about making that crucial leap from just saying, here's what I did, to proving, here's the value I created. And honestly, that difference is everything.
Just look at this comparison. It's a perfect example. On the left, you've got, I built an app with a MongoDB backend. Okay, cool, that's a technical fact. But on the right, I chose MongoDB to improve transaction speed by 20%. Now that is a business solution. See, one describes a task, the other demonstrates impact. Which story do you think an interviewer at Google or Amazon really wants to hear?
All right, so you get the why now. It's all about impact. But how do you actually do that when you're nervous and you're in a high-pressure interview? Well, there's this brilliant little framework for this, and it's called the STAR method. Let's dig into how it helps you build that perfect career story. Think of the STAR method as your secret weapon for any of those behavioral questions. You know, the "tell me about a time when" questions. It's a super simple structure that transforms a basic answer into a compelling story that clearly shows your value to the business.
So let's walk through it. Situation: we had a really tight 6-week deadline to migrate our entire workload. Task: my job was to move a critical part of our system from an old-school setup to a modern cloud-based one, specifically from VMware to Lambda. Action: so I identified we needed more resources. I actually went and got the budget approved, and then I shadowed senior engineers to get up to speed on the new tech. And here's the most important part: the result. We migrated 50% in the timeline, which secured more time from the client, and I later replicated that whole process on my own in just 2 weeks. See? That story, it just hits different. It shows impact, it shows learning, and most of all, business value.
Okay, so that totally covers the behavioral side of things. But what about the technical interview? This brings us to our second, absolutely crucial pillar, the scalability mindset.
You know, a lot of us spend countless hours, right, just grinding away, mastering the latest framework, thinking that's the golden ticket. But is deep knowledge of one specific tech stack really what these huge companies are looking for?
And the answer, maybe surprisingly, is no, not really. I mean, it's not that those skills aren't useful, of course they are, but big tech companies operate at such a massive scale that they often build their own internal tools anyway. So they're not hiring you for your knowledge of one specific framework, they're hiring you for something much, much deeper.
They want to know if you get the fundamentals. It's not about the syntax of a framework, it's about the architecture of a whole system. They want to see if you're thinking about how your code's going to behave when a million people hit it all at the same time. Or, how a request from someone in Australia will perform on a server that's all the way in Pakistan. That's the kind of stuff they care about.
And here's a perfect real-world example of this exact thing. In Pakistan's custom system, a really simple flaw in the code, just a variable type, couldn't process the super high value of an imported Lamborghini. Now, technically, it was a tiny fix, right? Probably just changing an integer to a long. But from a business perspective, it was a massive failure. It caused lost revenue and a huge operational headache. That is the scalability mindset, seeing the gigantic business consequences of what seems like a small technical oversight.
Okay, so we've got our two key pillars, the business mindset and the scalability mindset. Let's put them together into a simple blueprint you can use to get ready for your next interview, starting right now.
Here it is. This is your new game plan. For every single behavioral question, you're going to think impact, and you're going to use the STAR method. And for every technical problem, you're going to think foundations, not just frameworks. And always, always ask yourself, how does this scale? Make this your default way of thinking, and you will fundamentally change how you approach every project and every single interview.
So before we wrap things up, let's just look ahead for a second. With tools like ChatGPT and Gemini that can literally write code for us, what is the #1 skill that becomes even more critical for success in this new world?
It all comes down to this: knowing what to ask. Look, an AI is an incredibly powerful tool, for sure. It can write code, absolutely. But can it design a system that's scalable, secure, and resilient without being told exactly what to do? Nope. Your value is shifting from being the person who writes the code to being the architect who directs the machine.
So from now on, I want to challenge you. Before you write a single line of code, ask yourself this one question. Because the moment you can answer it, you're not just a coder anymore. You're thinking like an engineer at a top tech company.